Good morning, Valence, and thank you
Good
for
morning, Jack.
joining us for our Max Talks and for the topic which we had discussed on proven strategies to grow your business. So,
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Jack.
yeah,
Thanks for having me here.
and same here, Valence. So, Valence just wanted to know, we wanted to know the systems that does it help scale up, and can you explain why the system works?
Okay. Yeah, so I think one of the key elements that I have seen businesses struggling is, from scale up is not being able to put systems. And I've been also doing this study as okay, so why systems? Why systems and why does systems really work? So if I have to see, actually what gets us results is technically not necessarily the system, is what, I have realized. It's the principles that get embedded into the system. So let's say, for example, uh, you know, uh, there is a principle of reciprocation. Okay, so the
Okay.
principle of reciprocation states that if you do good or if you do something good to someone or you do something, automatically there is an inherent need of another person to give that good back to you. Okay,
Okay.
so we call it karma, we call it, a lot of other words that is there, but that's a principle of reciprocation. And I think the marketing, one of the most used principle is this. So if
Okay.
you would have noticed that you would have gone to a store and they would have asked you to, a free tasting session would be there, right? So there will be something you go to taste.
Right.
And if you have tried and you tried, put that into your mouth, okay, and
Right.
you start tasting it. You can't just leave that stall after that.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
you feel obligated. Yeah, that person did something good to
Correct.
me. Let me buy something, right? And
Right.
you have the tendency of buying something, right, which
Right.
is there. So that is nothing but a principle that has been used, and it is put as part of a system there. That there's a step that is there that if you want a business to grow, then this is the you take a stall, you display the free products which are there, allow people to taste it, and then you pitch your product, right? Which is
Right.
so the system is nothing but the principle that is there. Then you're putting steps behind that and making sure that when that steps are followed, the principle gets triggered, right?
Correct.
And because the principle gets triggered, you get results.
Yes.
So if you have already found out something that is working, why do you make another person again do all the hard work, right? How can you replicate something that is working faster? So the
Right.
way to replicate it is you put it as part of a steps or a system, and you just record that, and you just everyone will tell you want this result, try this, right? Because this has worked for me, and then you are able to replicate. The more you're able to replicate, more people start seeing results. The speed of execution gets better, results gets better, and that's where the systems work. It's in the sequence, the way that you use, and you're triggering principles which work to your advantage, and
Right.
that's the beauty about systems.
And that is what needs to be extended as well.
Yeah,
So
correct, correct.
just also wanted to check with you and find out how long have you been doing this kind of a research from your side?
Yeah, so I know this. I think it was in 2004. No, so technically, I got exposed to some quality tools or quality management tools. I think 2004. So it's about 20 years now that I've been exposed to quality.
Okay.
And what I realized when I was the first time that hit me, right, which this entire story that always resonates a lot with me is when Japan was destroyed and it was
Right.
completely destroyed, and they were wanting to reconstruct the country itself, and
Yes.
that's when they were discussing, and when all the elders in Japan, they were discussing, okay, how do we reconstruct this country, and someone gave them an information saying that Deming is a very good person. He's got a lot of knowledge. Why don't we invite him? So Deming is one of the quality gurus which is there. So Deming comes to Japan, and they put this proposal to Deming saying that help us to reconstruct Japan, right, which is there. And then Deming tells them, one point, he says, okay, I will help you, but you have to listen to me. So they said, okay, we will listen to you. They said, okay, how long will you listen to me? He said, 5 years. So Deming says, no, you have to give me 20 years, right? 20 years. And they finally agree and say, okay, we'll give you 20 years. And what Deming then does to the entire automobile industry in those 20 years is that it makes it so efficient and so smarter that the US suddenly starts getting a lot of competition from the Japanese automobile industry and taking away market share from the US. And what actually Deming does, and the entire thing is, Deming just makes the thinking in a very structured manner, right? Which
Right.
it makes everything. And the quality thinking is this: that something that has worked very well, you've already got it. How do you get the thinking across? All the people think in a very similar way. How
Right.
you in a structured way you solve a particular problem. When that systems approach multiplies, right?
Correct.
There's a huge impact on organization, your businesses, even a country impact that is there. So
Right.
that fascinated me, and so that's the journey that I've been always in that search. Okay. So I understood the principles, understood why systems are important, and it's been that gore, and it's like wine. Every year it gets better. So
Right.
you're always in that search of, okay, what's the best thing that is happening, and what's the system that can be used, and how you can replicate it. And that's been my journey, which has been there in the last 20 years now.
Correct. So, going ahead with the second question, what I had. So, if there are strong systems and processes which people know, what needs to be done then? Why we need to focus on developing people?
Okay, that's a So, so this is another one thing that I've been always having this dilemma in my mind, right? So, if systems are so important, then why do we need people?
Correct.
and but then what I've seen, and I've seen in industries and everywhere, is that sometimes the systems has its own limitations. Okay,
Correct.
systems sometimes the environment is so dynamic. Okay, there are so many changes that happen, and sometimes you're having a redundant system. The system is actually not useful. Maybe at that point of time, whatever you put in made sense. Now it is not making sense, right? And if you don't develop leadership, okay, and you don't develop people to think, which is there, and that's where development of people is there, then it becomes very mindless exercise, right? You're not improving anything. You are just doing the way it is done. And that is where I think there's a difference between a bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is this: is that the rules that are got set. Okay. And the bureaucrat or bureaucracy, when we say, is that you don't challenge the rules at all after some point of time. And you
Right.
just allow those rules to be, the rules are meant to help people, but after one point of time, rule can become a curse, right?
Right.
Because people are just following mindlessly the particular rule, and then it becomes very bureaucratic organization. And that's where development of people becomes very, very important. And the people culture, that is so important, that it rubs against and it improvises on that particular system, right? So you need to develop that people capability to think, to challenge status quo, to get things better. That's where, when both happens, when you have a systems approach and when you have people development approach, you are really optimally utilizing your resources, right? And that's where you become competitive and you're really able to get the best out of
Right.
everything which is there.
Right. Right. So, you mean developing people in soft skills or technical skills? I mean, so which kind of
Yeah.
a.
So there are two things. So I think the easier part is the technical part. So which definitely you require the technical expertise which is there. So
Right.
both are important. I personally think soft skills are more important. They take longer to develop. Organizations that spend more time on both
Okay.
really benefit. I know a lot of organizations, and most of the organizations do on technical skills because that is required.
Right.
But I think soft skills really add a lot of leverage to your capability, right?
Right.
It enhances your capability much, much more. So you may be very technically sound, but if you're not able to communicate that very well, it really of no use of that intelligence and the knowledge that you really built together, right? So the softer skills really complement to that. So both are equally important, but I think leveraging the softer skills becomes much more powerful.
I agree with you. Yes. Yes. Moving on to the other question. So there is this dilemma: companies invest in people training, and when they leave and go to competition, uh, does it make sense for the training investment which they have done?
Yeah, so this is what question I always see a lot of, especially small businesses, who have this funding and problem, and there's always this dilemma, right? I'm training everyone and then immediately leave, right? And my question has always been that, do you have a choice, right?
Right.
I don't think we have a choice. If you really want to, because finally you want to be competitive in the market, you have to give your customers a service at a level which is acceptable for you to be even surviving, I don't think you have no choice of not training your people. I mean, training is no
Right.
choice. But how do you solve this dilemma, right? And which is very very point, right? Because once a person becomes capable enough, he becomes more marketable. So you are actually increasing your marketability, increasing it, that his chances of getting a higher job, higher thing is very very gets better, which is there.
Right.
But I think that again it comes to a principle of saying that people generally don't go only for the money out, right?
Right.
If you build a good strong culture, if you people look for growth, people look for knowledge enhancements, people look for a stretch assignments that they do. When you are engaging our people at those levels, right? And I think those are more important things that to be focused upon, rather than trying to say we are training me, they will get marketable. I think if you get that right, people will stick on. And I like the quote which Richard Branson always puts. He says that train people, that they become so marketable that they can leave you anytime, right?
Right.
But treat them so well that they choose to stay with you, right?
Yes.
So I
Yes.
think I think I think that's if we have that mindset, I think we can get the best out of everything.
Yes. Yes. So, also, I mean, if you could actually expand on this in terms of your corporate experience. So, are there any case studies which you have experienced yourself and you have implemented it?
So when I was in Six Sigma, and when I was more into Six Sigma type, and initially in my quality journey I was in Stanchart, then I used to be in Bank of America, and then I went to WNS. One common thing I used to see with all the guys who are coming from the Six Sigma, all the GE people, right? My bosses were GE, and a lot of the guys will be the ex-GE type. And I remember one conversation when I was having with my ex-boss, right, and he was telling me, Valens, I have left GE 10 years back, but the
Right.
G inside me has not left. Okay,
Right.
right. So sometimes the company can do that to you.
Correct.
I've seen the same experience happen in ICICI Bank. Right? I've been in ICICI Bank for 17 years, 16 years, which is there, and I've seen this trend. I recently left the bank to start something on my own. But I've seen most of the people who leave the bank. Generally, if you look at the financial industries, half the CEOs of all the other financial sector NBFCs, you will have an origin of ICICI Bank. You would have had a stint in ICICI Bank. You go to a place, you will have always, and the way you connect with an ex ICICI banker, it completely, you connect very fast, right? Which is there.
Right.
A lot of people, and this is the same thing. We have the same feeling. Even if you leave the bank, right? The bank inside us doesn't leave. It
Yes.
has ingrained us, trained us, and you got that which is there. I think that's the strength and the thing of culture. The beauty is that we become brand ambassadors even after we leaving, right? And
Right.
in this podcast, I'm still talking highly about my ex organization. Right? It's
Right.
like a brand ambassador.
Yes.
What more better that you have in your company when your ex-employees leave and still talk about very highly about you, right? So
Absolutely.
actually, as the company goes, brand goes up, right? And that's where I think the benefit is. Even if people choose to leave, but they will never forget you the way they treated you and how you made you grow.
Absolutely. And that also goes well with the HR systems as well. So when an ex-employee talks very highly about you, there are chances in terms of the hiring, a good hiring, a good talent. And of
Correct,
course,
correct,
even when even the new employee joins the organization, they always have a tendency to check in Glassdoor. So how are the rating? What are the the ratings which the ex-employees have given? It does make a difference, in fact. So you don't have to kind of manipulate anything,
correct,
in terms
correct.
of the ratings, and
Absolutely
that itself speaks volume.
correct.
So moving on to the next question is: it is said culture eats strategy for breakfast. How is culture created?
Yeah, so this is another one thing that I used to always, think like, how is some organizations build such beautiful culture, some organizations struggle, right? So two, three things that I have learned in my journey on this. One is culture can't happen by accident, right?
Right,
If you don't intentionally create culture, I think that's a rule of law, and it's the rule of the universe. So if you look at a garden, if you just don't try and work on that garden, okay, intentionally, weeds come. For weeds to come, you don't need effort. Weeds automatically take over the garden.
right,
Similarly, if you put iron and you just leave it there, rust will come. Okay, so anything which is bad happens naturally. If you
Correct.
want to create something good, there has to be intention, that intentionally you want to do. So even in culture, I think a lot of companies which don't focus on creating a right culture actually are doing disservice by naturally creating bad culture, because
Right.
bad culture comes natural, you don't have to do anything. So if
Correct.
you don't do anything, you can be sure your culture is going to go for a toss, right?
Yes.
Because weeds will come in, you will get the bad thing. So good culture, okay. So if you want to, so the first principle I've realized is culture means you have to consciously create. It cannot happen automatically. There has to
Right.
be effort to create. Now, how do you create that, right? So a lot of times, every company, we have a value system, right? Everything we start our values, and that's very important. If we don't have values, then we don't know what we stand for. But if we have a values and we know the mission, vision, and values, and typically most organizations I've seen have this vision, and the values which are there, which the founding team has put into place. But I think what differentiates people who have built a strong culture is that the values can either be a noun or be converted into a verb.
Right.
Okay. So most of the time it's like a noun. It is kept there as a noun. Okay. So for example, the value could be is respecting, respect for everyone, right? So that's the particular value that the company
Yes.
has. But respect for everyone is there. But how do you institutionalize it that actually it happens in the company, right, which is
Right.
there? And that's where can you convert that into a verb? Okay, it's like, how do I know that there is respect happening? So one could be that the one of the verbs could be is that be punctual on time for meetings.
Right.
Okay. If someone tries to call you, okay, make sure that you at least return that call within 24 hours if you are busy.
Right.
Okay. So when you convert that value into a verb, okay, and you have this list of rules, okay,
Right.
which are there,
Right.
and you articulate those rules very clearly,
Correct.
saying, okay, these are the rules that we stand for. And once you're articulating these rules that we stand for, and get people to commit to it, right?
Yes.
So you're saying, okay, we as an organization stand for this.
Right.
And once people are committing to that, then make sure that it's reinforced every time that these rules are followed. Now, these, you call it code of honor, you could call it, you could call it any other words, but it's about behavioral, acceptable behavioral behaviors which are there, right? So which is there.
Correct.
And once you get those acceptable behaviors and you list it down and tell people, and then you should also have a consequences of people not following it, right? So
Right.
that if they're not following, they have to be pulled up. And when you consistently keep doing that again and again and reiterating, that start getting culture. Then the culture starts getting formed, because people
Correct.
know what they can expect here, right?
Right.
Coming late for a meeting here is not acceptable. Everybody knows that. So
Right.
someone has to come there and think that he can come into a meeting and not being taken to task is like stupidity, because that's a
Correct.
culture that has got created. but
Correct.
but first we have to just clearly articulate what are those things that we stand for,
Correct.
and there has to be a consequence if the person is not doing it, right? And the
Yes.
more it is, then culture gets formed.
Correct.
So like in the bank, I remember in the last 4 5 years, one of the things that was really drilled into us was fair to customer, fair to bank, right? So everything that we do,
Okay.
you have to make sure fair to customer, fair to bank. And the way they explain fair to customer is, would you sell this product to your relative?
Ah, right.
Okay. If you're not selling the product to relative, then don't sell.
Okay.
Okay, scrap it, right? So it becomes very clear. So you have a value. You're also articulating, the verb, right? What to do, and so when you make it simple like that, it's very clear. We got 1 lakh employees across. The communication goes easier. It gets
Right.
drilled down faster, right? And people know what's that acceptable thing. And when it's consistently done, when everybody does it, then
Right.
that culture starts getting formed, right? And that's
Correct.
the way the culture gets formed.
Correct. Yes. Totally agree. So we move on to the next question. So, how can businesses that lack money take on the leaders in their industry?
Okay. So this experience I had is, when I was with the bank, and I always was always thinking that, if you're big, you have the money, you have everything, it'll be easy to to implement and execute, right? And the classic case was, I have experience in the payment industry. Now, if you look at the payments industry, the most of the people who have taken the market share of UPI, or the UPI payments, if you see logically, it should have been the banks. Okay, banks were always having this network. They had the money, they had people, everything they had, right? But the players who took were Paytm, PhonePe, Google Pay. They were fintechs, right? They came into that place and they took
Correct.
that market, right, which is there. So I was so then convinced to say that just being big is also a disadvantage, right? Which is
Okay.
there. And so the disadvantage is this, that at times there are so many things that you're doing, okay, and there are so many priorities that are there. You tend to miss out certain things which are also there below you, right? Because there are so many other things. If you want to get something changed, there is already a big queue. There are so many changes, so many teams. The IT team is, asking, okay, which to prioritize, which one to do, what to do, right? Which is there. And so the advantage I think the smaller ones have, okay, is speed and flexibility,
Correct.
okay, which the
Yes.
smaller things have. And the way the advantage is that instead of you also, I mean, if you are small and you're trying to take on big players, it is stupid to go and trying to do and play the game which the big players game, right? It's the full market, taking the full market, trying to play the full market. You can't win that game, but you
Correct.
can win a game when you cut that market into a very, very narrow niche, okay, very, very narrow niche, and go into that niche and focus and trying to be the best in that niche. That strategy, the big player cannot do.
Correct.
Whatever the big player tries, he cannot do, right?
Correct.
So more and more narrow we go, more and more clear in the niche we go, the more and more our ability to dominate that sector will be there. So, for example, let's say if you're even an example, if you're a time management coach, right? You're
Correct.
doing time management, even training, for example, time management. And time management, let's say you're able to sell 10,000 rupees for a training, okay? The time management for salespeople is little more valuable.
Right.
Okay, maybe you can charge it 25,000. People will be willing to
Yes.
willing to pay, right? Time management for a CEO will
Yes.
be much much more valuable. Okay, you
Correct.
could charge 50,000, right?
Yes.
But time management for a hedge fund manager, okay, a portfolio manager is much more valuable. Okay,
Correct.
you could be charging a 1 lakh rupees, which is there. So the more and more narrower you go, the probability, and you are really damn good at what you do, because the more narrow you go, you're able to understand,
Right.
able to pinpoint the problem which is there. Your ability to be a master in that and really make money is, you have a but much more better chance than someone who's bigger, larger, right?
Yes.
So that niche is a very, very important thing to take on the big players. Go a little narrow.
Correct. So good. I mean, also, I would like to say that, and I totally agree with you with the scale, but I also feel that, the bigger companies also could actually keep something in terms of probably a department where some kind of a creative thinkings should be allowed. In fact,
Yes.
so maybe that also can be of a great support. Some kind of a research, some kind of a research and development team, of course, can make a lot of difference.
Yes,
I'm not
yes.
saying that it is not happening, but of course, that can be looked at.
Perfect. And I think there are a lot of teams, and I've seen a lot of big, large companies work like small companies, right?
Right.
Which is, I think that again, which is there. They have work in smaller teams, smaller parts which were there,
Right.
and especially in a project mode. You can try to get
Yes.
them in a project mode, get their execution. Yes, I totally agree with you. That's another way of, even though you're big,
Yes.
you can become nimble.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that is definitely a good strategy.
Yes. So I move on to the other question. So there is always a pressure from clients to reduce prices. So is there a way to handle pricing pressure?
Yeah. So this thing that I've been also noticing, and one pattern that I always notice, that clients always want always something cheaper, and I think that's a human tendency, that you always want a better bargain, right? And you want
Yes.
something that is always to be reduced, and I think it's a very natural part of the business process. But what I also have observed, right? People also pay more, right?
Right.
So there's somewhere where they are conscious, but they also pay more. And what are the reasons that they pay more? And is something that maybe I always try and see, okay, why would a customer be okay to pay more? And most of the time, I realize is that I'm okay to pay more, even as me as a customer, is when I really see value in it. Okay, the
Right.
more if I see value, then I tend to not think about price typically,
Right.
right, which is there. And the tendency is that whenever someone asks for price down, okay, a reduced price, is another very surrogate or an indirect way of saying why you're not adding value.
Right. Right.
Okay, which is there. Now you
Correct.
could be adding value, but you're not, maybe not communicating that value very well. Okay,
Yes.
that could also be there.
Yes.
So I always believe that price negotiation or price thing is always a more underlying deeper problem.
Right.
The deeper problem, it's not the price, right? The underlying deeper problem is why I think somewhere your value proposition is
Yes.
lacking. Okay,
Correct.
and that needs to be addressed rather than the price, right?
Right.
So rather than trying to focus on reducing the price, maybe get the team to invest and see, okay, where can we build value, right? Where can we increase value? And I
Right.
always have this nice example. So I've got this iPhone. I remember I bought this iPhone quite a long back. I think I paid some 45,000 rupees for it. And the question is, if I want to sell this particular iPhone today, right, which is there, and I want to not sell it cheap. Okay,
Right.
I want to sell this and I bought it for 45, but let's say I want to sell it for 70,000. Okay,
Right.
how do I do that?
Correct.
And there are, if I just think through it, okay, what could be the way that I could sell this particular iPhone, right? If I just go and tell them iPhone, nobody's going to buy it.
Right.
But how can I increase the value of this iPhone? So one, two, three things I have. So one I can always say is that, okay, I know a lot of connects because of my community. I know a lot of people who personally I know who buys this iPhone. The top 10, 15 connects, I personally will connect you, right?
Right.
Which is there. So that could be an additional value that is there.
Correct.
The
Correct.
second is, I am also, do a lot of research and trainings, and I spend a lot of money on learning and training, especially marketing and sales. And so I would say I spent 10 lakh, 15 lakh rupees on trainings. All those trainings I've made it into an app.
Mm.
Okay. And all that I will put it as part of an app into
Right.
this. And who buys this phone also gets that 10 lakh worth of training also as part of this app, right? It is there.
Right.
Now this phone automatically value goes up.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Then the ability of someone to pick up this phone at 70,000, it goes up, right?
Correct.
Rather than me trying to just sell this phone. Okay. And I think somewhere we always have this opportunity in whatever we sell or whatever we do, somewhere to brainstorm and say, okay, how do we, okay, price is pressure, that's a reality, but is there something that we can do to raise the value? Okay. What is it that we can give something important for the other person, raise the value? Maybe in that we may not, you may just match the price, but we may actually charge more, right? And I think if you have that mindset, I see, that price pressure is a good way to, overcome that.
Correct. So maybe what you clearly mentioned is adding more benefits.
Correct.
Adding more benefits. Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, I totally agree with you, and this is how this could be addressed. Okay. Also, I think the price point also becomes a factor when you are at the starting point.
Correct.
Also, because see, when you're just introducing your new
Yes.
business, that
Yes.
is the point of time where you would like more clients to actually experience your services,
Correct.
and that might be the time where probably your price point can be that time you could have a strategy in place
Yeah.
where initially the price point can be lower, and slowly and gradually, once the people become comfortable, and of course a lot of people actually test your services and they agree with you, and then probably you can ramp up in terms of your costing part also. So what do
Yeah,
you feel
exactly.
about this?
Yeah, absolutely. But the principle of value will still play around here, right? So even if you go and reduce the price,
Correct.
but your offering of value cannot reduce. I mean, there has to be relatively much more than the price that you are
Yes.
charging them, right?
Correct.
And it is that value that because everybody notices, okay, I'm
Right.
giving this much, but this guy is offering this much, right?
Yes.
Then
Yes.
one is, especially new trust gets built, credibility gets built,
Sure.
and they see value coming in, when it gives you leverage to later on sell higher end products or whatever the
Yes.
products which is there. So
Yes.
that the idea of removing it from the that value proposition is an extremely important thing. You're giving
Right.
it lower or higher, but it has to be more than the price that we charge.
Yes. Surely. So I move on to the other question. So money is like oxygen to a business. What are the few areas of businesses which can be focused that yet don't run out of money?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I've realized, businesses, and two things that really run out, right? They run out of time, they run out of money. Actually, they run out of money because of this, they run out of time.
Right.
And the business really closes down, right? So I think a lot of times, good business model, good businesses, just because they manage the money incorrectly, got into trouble. And so one is, I always think that I always believe that one is your marketing has to be good. So your ability to sell, grow, solves a lot of problems, okay, because money comes in, so your cash flow comes in, so that
Yes.
solves a lot of problems. So the basically everybody should be learning and knowing marketing and sales. I think that's a very important thing in my mind. The second thing is, there are three principles that I always feel that, in money management is very, I found it very, very important and more relevant. One, I call it the 20-120 principle. Okay. So meaning, uh, 20% of the things that if we stop doing, okay,
Right.
uh, you will automatically get your profits up. Okay. So because if you see, even whatever you do, right, there will always be something that is very loss making to you.
Right.
Okay, there will be some loss making, some customers who are loss making, some products that are loss making, something that is really unproductive, which is there, right? So there's always there is something which is dragging down your profit. Okay,
Right.
and typically the thing, thumb rule is about 20% of it is like, these are the things which are redundant stuff, which you are just mindlessly doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you just be conscious about what are those and stop doing it, you don't even have to do anything, just stop,
Right.
your bottom line can increase, right? So the first thing that you need to identify, what are those, that
Correct.
which is there. The second important habit, and I think it's a very, very important habit, is just to see your cash flows.
Right.
Okay, just to view your cash flows, how money is moving. So a lot of times, a lot of business look at profits, okay, and they
Right.
see the profits are going up, but then they suddenly see there's no money in the bank.
Correct.
Okay, and so the profits are very accounting term now. So you do a lot of credit sales, your profits will look very good, but you're not collecting very well, then
Yes.
you're in trouble, right? Which is there.
Correct. Correct.
So looking at your cash flows is extremely important, right? What is there and what's your, and projecting your cash flow at least for 1 month from now.
Right.
Now, how is it particularly looking? There, when you look at those cash flows, look at places where your money is getting stuck, where
Yes.
your money is getting leaking, right?
Right.
Which are those, and those gives you a lot of insights, okay? Which
Right.
where your money is going. That
Right.
habit of every 15 days, every at least a month, looking
Mm-hmm.
at your cash flows is another way will get you a lot of ideas where your money is getting, unproductively used, right? And you take
Sure.
those action items which
Yes.
are there. The third thing that I feel is another way of looking at it is, I call that, it's called the cash conversion cycle.
Okay.
It's the days that are taken from the time that, let's say, you get an order
Right.
till the time you execute
Right.
and you collect the money, right? There is
Right.
a time period which is there.
Right.
Now, the time period which is there, that is all actually indirectly money getting stuck, right?
Correct. Correct.
Because you're there. So first you should know what is the number.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You don't even know that number, then there's a problem. So
Correct.
if you know that number, then try and bring that number down. So now let's say it takes you 30 days from that
Right.
time you got an order to execute and collect the money.
Right.
Then if you bring the 30 days to 25 days, 20 days, your cycle of money coming gets better. But
Right.
if the 30 days is becoming 35 days, 40 days, 50 days, then you should know very clearly you are going to get into trouble, because
Right.
your money is going to get into a stretch, right, which is there.
Right.
So these three things, if you take into account, right, one is find out that 2020, what are the 20% of the things that you can just stop doing.
Right.
Look at your cash flow, see where your money is getting blocked, money is getting leaked, right? Take action. And look at your cash conversion cycle, right? How
Right.
long it takes to execute and bring it down. Bring it down, it could be, either your payment terms. Suppose if you're buying something, you
Right.
could renegotiate your payment terms, right? To
Correct.
get more
Correct.
credit.
Yes.
Or you're giving your inventory a holding, don't hold too much of inventory, try and make it, more efficient, predictive
Right.
inventory, right? So those things, when you do, automatically your cash management gets better. These three things,
Yes.
if you focus on, my understanding is that it really gets better.
Yes. Thank you. This was a quite a detailed, I think, analysis. So, why do business stagnant in your view?
So I think a lot of times, we need to, so we do something, it has worked for some time, right? And I think it's business stagnation is also a lot to do with, also as human beings, when we also in our career growth or somewhere we get stuck, right? If you really reflect, is that what got us here will not get us there, right? So
Right.
a lot of skills, a lot of things that we actually develop which we got us here,
Right.
we need to reinvent ourselves, we need to grow, and we need to reskill ourselves to take us to that particular next level which is there.
Yes.
And I think a lot of time, businesses also the similar process happens, right? There is
Right.
a growth that happens. A lot of times, sometimes what we do well, suddenly we stop doing, then we
Correct.
hit a plateau which is there.
Yes.
Or we have done everything well, but we are not doing something that takes us to that next level
Correct.
which
Correct.
is there, right? So I
Yes.
think the ability to really reinvent yourself, ability to ask those tough questions, the ability to find out broad, the areas that are there, and I've observed there are four broad areas that typically businesses should evaluate, especially if
Right.
they're getting stuck, right? One is the direction. Okay, the direction as they're going in, direction comes in is it something that they really believe in? Because everything is energy, right? So if you don't have the right energy, you can't really build something big.
Yes.
And if your energy getting very drailed down, is something sometimes you're forced into something, you got into something, but it is not something that you really enjoy, right? It makes sense of really look at the direction and the intention of way of building the
Right.
business and look that direction, it made it take off. Second could be your entire marketing strategy, your customer acquisition strategy. You could be you may still not be clear who's your customer, who's that customer you really add value.
Right.
Getting that particular right, and getting that entire product proposition for each level, and can you get them that value chain? That may be the second element of your entire customer piece, right? And how you add value to the customer. Third element would be your people and process. Okay, where you are not developing, everything is right, but you are just not able to manage it, right? The part is lacking.
Yeah.
People are leaving, people are not staying, right? People are, they are doing what they want to do. Maybe that, and can you build, or you have only people but there's no process, or you have only process but no people strategy, right?
Right.
Having that people and process part going together. And the fourth is your money management. You do all this, but your money you're not able to manage. You don't know what
Correct.
is happening in
Correct.
your money, right? You're not looking at
Right.
your numbers. So I think these four areas is a good way to evaluate and see, okay, which is the
Right.
one that maybe I need to really rework on, okay, and which will accelerate my next level, right? So
Right.
these are the areas I think when you just focus on, you'll get ideas to get out of that particular stagnation.
Right. Right. So the right balance approach is something which is very important,
Yeah,
as you
yeah,
mentioned. The four
correct,
pillars.
correct.
What is the one thing that differentiates successful leaders and the business owners?
Okay, so the way I have seen this work out, right, and all my ex bosses, and especially all the bosses that I find very, very good in executing. And I think one thing that stands out very, very clearly is the belief system. And I think they do what they believe in. Okay? And a lot of times I'll get into meetings, and there are some commitment levels that are there on certain numbers or certain targets or certain things that they take. I will be in my mind saying this is like impossible. Okay, this is like ridiculous. It looks ridiculous, which is there. But I would see my boss very, very gung okay? And it was like, he'll say, yes, we'll get this done. Okay. And there was no iota of doubt in his mind that this will not get done, right? Which is
Okay.
there. And during the process after that, and when we have our subsequent meetings and subsequent strategy and we are doing it, right, I realized that a lot of things are there that could pull this off. Okay.
Right.
Okay. And I go through this process. And one thing that I realize is that when someone comes with the belief that it can get done, it
Right.
opens up so many thought processes that is possible. Okay,
Correct.
a lot of possibilities open up, a lot of avenues. Your mind becomes more clearer. You're in that search of those answers, and because you are in that mindset of saying that this is achievable. I think the way the brain works, or the laws work, is that then ideas start really coming in and attracting to you, right? It keeps coming in there.
Correct.
And eventually we pull it off, right?
Mm.
Which is there. And that's where I realized that how important belief is.
Right.
Just developing that belief in yourself, developing that belief that this can be done, I think is where the hallmark, and it's not easy. It comes over a period of time. Maybe one of the things that I realized that my belief system is I mean, I get a lot of my faith from the Bible, so I read a lot of the Bible. And the second is also associating with people who have high belief system.
Right.
The
Right.
more you have associate with them, and that it builds on your belief system, right? And then you see it happening, your belief system gets better. And
Right.
then I think automatically you become a better leader, you're a better executioner. And
Yes.
then it is your moral responsibility to make sure that the people around you, you are able to increase their belief system. And I
Right.
think that's leadership in my view.
Right. So, as you mentioned about the Bible as well, so even in the leadership model, the module nowadays, the spirituality is also been included, in fact, and that is also one of the driving force. which is now getting included into the system. So, what
Correct.
is your thought on this?
See, this has been my observation for a very long time. So I've been a very, I've been fascinated with the Bible and the Bible teaching for the last, I think again, 25 years, 20 years, yeah, at least 20 years.
Yeah.
And what I've realized is I originally, I've been doing this research and a lot in the last 10 years, very, very deep research on business and reading books and a lot of time, right? But before that itself, I used to read the Bible a lot, and I've seen a lot of parallels which is there. So
Right.
I've realized that a lot of a lot of business principles comes from theology. It comes from the principles of moral values or something that has
Okay.
worked over generations, right? We
Okay.
may not give a reference to that directly, but the principle is taken
Right.
from there, and then it is getting used in a business context. And so I think rather than, and that is where I say, rather than listening it from the business management books, I think now we are going towards the source. Why don't
Yes.
we directly go to the source, right,
Absolutely.
and take it from the source, and from the source it becomes it's much more enriching, much more learning. And I think that's where the spirituality and spiritual thinking is evolving towards. Why don't we get to that, to the source for that, for
Right.
where it originates from?
Absolutely. So, one final question. Your upcoming book, Breakthrough Stagnation and Scale Your Business. So, what is the background of writing this book and what motivated you to write this book?
Yeah, so I think the background for this book is one is, so I've been and I think over a period of time I've realized my core strength or my calling has been setting up systems. I enjoy putting systems in place, systems in a way that something that is working well, that I can share with someone, which they can then implement, right? So I think that's been my premise of always doing that. And one of the things that I have been focusing on, I've picked up as a niche in my consulting, is helping businesses to scale. What is it that good businesses, what are those businesses that really do, companies that run very well, what are those systems, what are those steps, what are those strategies that they use, that if I can document it in a way, it can be beneficial. And I wanted to do it in a way that it can benefit a lot of people, right? So there are multiple ways of me personally going and sharing this, which I'm anyway doing it here, but it also has a way of, can I put this as part of a book and it reaches more people, right? The
Right.
ability to reach more people, it gets affordable, people to read that, which is there. And the background to that is a couple of things. One is, till the 17th century, right? India as an economy used to be an entrepreneurship economy. We
Right.
used to be dominating the entire world GDPs, and a very wealthy country per se, right? And then after the British taking over, somewhere our education system and everyone made us, worker part,
Right.
right? So which is more on that particular, which is good, but it has got its own limitations. But what I'm saying is, I'm seeing more and more entrepreneurs coming in, and the entrepreneurship has, most of them are first time entrepreneurs. They've never done entrepreneurship at
Right.
all, right? Like for me, I'm also in the entire family first time
Okay.
venturing, venturing out into entrepreneur. So the thing is, can there be a framework that
Okay.
I can document, which I have
Right.
been learning,
Okay.
and just help them in, as part of the book, right?
Okay.
So that's where this book background is, for that particular audience, which are there, to give them some ideas, which
Okay.
maybe other companies I've seen it work. So that's the background.
That's very nice. It's very good to know. At least there will be a framework for the new generation of
Yeah,
entrepreneurs.
yeah,
And
yeah.
in fact, one who would like to start his or her own business.
Correct.
So this will definitely be that guiding force.
Correct.
So thank you very much, Valence, to be a part of our Max Talks. And of course, we would love to have you again
Yeah, it is a
with your
pleasure,
success of
Jack.
your book. So we wish you a loads of success
Thank,
to your book launch, of course.
thank you, Jack. Thank you. Thank you
Okay
very
then,
much.
yeah. Thank you.
God
Bye.
bless.
Thank you.
Bye bye.